Hello everyone and welcome to Whatculture. I'm Josh, joined today by Ewan Patterson.
Hello, Josh Brown.
On this glorious day, because while we were peacefully sleeping last night, Kevin Feige himself dropped down our chimneys and released from his sack a Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, and it's got everyone very excited. And rather than just do a little bit of a reaction, we're going to try to fully break it down because there is so much packed within this 3 minutes. So Ewan, you have all the notes. Where do you want to begin?
First off, Josh Brown, I want to say that it's been 84 years, man. We've been waiting for this trailer for 84 years, and suddenly Kevin Feige comes along in the dead of night to go, the dead speak, and somehow Spider-Man trailers have returned. Honestly, my head just completely fell out its own butt this morning. I cannot believe what I've seen. The actual trailer itself is everything I hoped it would be. I think it's kind of come at the right time with everyone kind of, a general sense of malaise over the Marvel product at the minute, I think it would be fair to say. And obviously everyone's been looking forward to this movie. And yeah, there is a lot to get into. So, of course, the first part of the trailer picks up immediately where Spider-Man Far From Home left off, with Peter in a bit of a blind panic because old J. Jonah Jameson just went ahead and blasted his identity all across the headlines, and yeah, we get to see a bit of the fallout from that. We see MJ and Peter on top of a New York City rooftop where she's reading out different tabloid headlines about him, being like, he has Spider-Man mind control to control females, and it's quite a funny little bit of a scene going on there. The first big thing that I want to point out, though, is that during this little opening montage of different bits and bobs, we see Peter being interrogated. Now, these aren't just ordinary cops. If you look on their uniforms, it actually looks as though it's the Department of Damage Control. And the even cooler thing here, if we can just go full, completely just tinfoil hat conspiracy, although maybe depending on how much you pay attention to Charlie Cox's arms in Netflix's Daredevil, this might not seem so far-fetched a theory, but in the brief moment we get those two damage control officers, the camera we get a fade to black, and then we get another guy in a white shirt slamming some files down on the table, and there are obviously way more files on the table at this point, and lots of people are thinking that this is Charlie Cox's Daredevil because we've had some rumors beforehand that he's going to be in the movie. I've been doing all kinds of summoning circles and mystical stuff in my spare time to try and will this thing into existence. And if you look at Peter there, his face doesn't look so much concerned as it does kind of confused that someone is helping him in this situation. So I'm kind of leaning into the idea that, these are Charlie Cox's glorious arms giving Peter a way out and granting him bail to actually then go and, live a life that is obviously going to be then disturbed, as we see later in the trailer, by all sorts of paparazzi and protesters and just high schoolers trying to get a shot of him as Spider-Man.
Yeah, totally, man. I want to believe this so much. I started today like I want to start every day, watching a new Spider-Man trailer and comparing characters' arm hair to make sure it fits my fan theory. Yeah, I think the fact that we don't see his face, like you mentioned, the fact that Peter has this kind of strange look on his face, and the fact that, he's in like 2 frames and it's so obscure and it makes sense for Matt Murdock to be in that position, I think that would be awesome. I think it would be a great way to reintroduce that character and would be another fan-pleasing moment in a movie that seems entirely built around fan-pleasing moments.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, we've also had rumors that Vincent D'Onofrio will be reprising his role as Wilson Fisk in the upcoming Hawkeye series. So if you're going to reintroduce any of those Netflix characters, now is the time to do it, especially given both of those characters' kind of history with Spider-Man in the comics, and also to please me as like one of the world's biggest Daredevil fans. So that's kind of just, it's all for me at the end of the day, Josh Brown.
It is.
The next thing after this is we get an interesting commentary on the revelations surrounding Peter's identity from MJ, talking about the unintended kind of benefits to actually having his identity go public. He no longer has to lie to people. He doesn't have to, he can be honest with everyone now. And obviously, that ignores the whole everyone in his immediate vicinity is now in mortal peril thing, but it's an interesting stuff because we can compare this to One More Day in a great many ways, because Peter's gut instinct after seeing all of his friends and family in the trailer kind of be subjected to harassment. I think we can see May and Ned, I think they kind of get thrown in a cell at one point, or they're being put in an interview room. You know, his gut instinct is to think, how do I go ahead and actually go and fix this? And in the comics, that was to go speak to Mephisto in One More Day, which was the worst Spider-Man story ever told. We won't talk about it, but we have to. Which obviously involved, you know, for long story short, Marvel were like, Spider-Man can't be married, he's not cool to kids anymore, so they made the writer J. Michael Straczynski write a story where he made a deal with Mephisto after Civil War where his identity was revealed so that he could get his secret identity back, but that conveniently meant that he had to sacrifice his marriage to MJ and also Aunt May would live. It was really bad, but they're actually looking like they're going to have an interesting conversation over it here because, you know, he goes to Doctor Strange in this instance, and yeah, the Sanctum Sanctorum seems as though it's seen better days. It's completely snowy, and he's wearing a parka, Josh.
Well, he's wearing a parka. He certainly is. Well, interestingly, Ewan, I mean, this comes out in December. It's not set in December. I think it's set in Halloween. But, you know, maybe it's just a bit chilly. Maybe it's just a bit chilly where the Sanctum Sanctorum is. Maybe that's what's going on there. Interestingly, going from what you just said there about those kind of discussions about Peter Parker's secret identity and how the characters around him are handling it and how there are potentially some perceived benefits in aside the whole thing of all of his loved ones now suddenly being targets. You know, we see that when he does go to meet Doctor Strange and ultimately asks him to help make it so that everyone forgets, Men in Black style, that his secret identity was ever out. And obviously, not to jump ahead and completely, you know, get in on your lovely breakdown here, but, you know, the catalyst for everything going tits up, essentially, is that Peter suddenly has those last-minute doubts. You know, Stephen Strange is doing his spell, he's going to reverse it, and then he suddenly starts saying, well, what about all of the interactions that I've had with MJ? What about Ned? He's my best friend. What about Aunt May? And that's kind of like what breaks it up. And it makes me wonder whether, obviously, they're taking elements of One More Day, and that was a hugely derided outcome, but I wonder whether they're going to flip the switch on it ultimately and use these moments to establish that he ultimately decides not to trade all of this in if he does get the chance to reverse it, because the experiences that he's had are too valuable, and ultimately, potentially, there's a way to move forward where his immediate loved ones aren't in danger, and he kind of doesn't tamper with time, he doesn't tamper with their perceptions, and he kind of like deals with it in a grown-up fashion, because all of these movies are about Spider-Man growing from a teenager into a hero who takes great responsibility, right? Yeah, a Nickelback certified hero. So I wonder whether part of that journey is going to be him realizing that he can't undo every mistake, and in fact he has to live with it and deal with it and adapt to it.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting discussion, and obviously that lends itself into the idea as well, or at least the question over Doctor Strange's own motivations in here, because, you know, obviously Stephen's been a bit of a maverick in every single MCU outing we've seen thus far, but you certainly wouldn't have thought that he would have been so keen as to be like, yeah, I can just rewrite the multiverse. Yeah, we can just, you know, just change your entire backstory. I'll do that. That sounds like a responsible thing for Doctor Strange to do. So obviously there is some idea. We see in the trailer, obviously, you know, that bit where Wong's telling him to not do the thing, and then Strange is just like, I'm gonna do it. I'm mad, and he does it anyway. But also, you see him doing the astral projection thing on Peter, and it looks as though Peter is looking to grab something that belongs to the Sanctum Sanctorum. And at this point, you know, it's definitely after the whole first encounter thing, because he's got his full robes on again. So I'm curious to see what exactly Strange's motivations here are, and, you know, whether this is actually Strange or not, because he is behaving a little bit kind of, you know, whimsically. Like, obviously, you know, his whole thing is that he's a bit dry and whatever, and, you know, he's not as wound up tight as the other sorcerers in the Marvel Universe, or at least the ones we've met so far. But being the Sorcerer Supreme does bring with it its own responsibility, and he's behaving in a very irresponsible way. So, you know, could there be potential for some kind of different hijinks going on here? Could this really be Stephen Strange? He's definitely gelled his hair back a little bit more, so that looks a little bit more evil, but I don't know what you think.
But yeah, that's an interesting point because this one I didn't even think about. I thought that Strange almost instantly agreeing to just take on this kind of potentially space and time destroying job was a bit iffy, but I hadn't thought about the implications of that scene where he is knocking Peter out of his body. And it's the train sequence where Strange is kind of like lifting all of the trains and stuff. He looks to be in a bit more of a sinister get-up in that sequence, and I don't know whether there's kind of some conflict going on there. I don't know whether they'll do a kind of a body swap gimmick again, because that was a huge thing in Far From Home, especially in its post-credits. We found out that a bunch of those characters were Skrulls in disguise and all that stuff, so I don't know whether they'll do it, but you've sown the seeds of doubt, is all I'm saying. There is enough evidence in that trailer to suggest what you're saying, and it's making me very wary of this partnership.
Yeah, definitely. There are obviously bigger doozies to come in the trailer,
Yes.
but one more thing, one tiny little Easter egg I do want to draw attention to as well, is around the 1:16 mark, we see Peter in a new Spider-Man outfit. Now, I believe this may have been leaked in merchandise like months ago, but it's certainly not something that I've seen before, but you can see him here with mask off in a black costume. It's not the same as the Spider-Monkey design scene in Far From Home. It's definitely a new look because you can notice the webs on it, and I'm curious to see whether or not, this is something he's made himself to try and rebrand as a new kind of Spider-Man or whatever, but he's chasing someone through a cafeteria anyway, and it's interesting to see how that'll factor into the movie. We'll move along now to the big cheese of the entire thing, and that is the presence of the burgeoning Sinister Six of the multiverse.
Yes.
So after everything goes haywire, we get some Inception-y shots of New York folding in on itself. We also see Sandman, basically a sandstorm, which if you see sand in Spider-Man, you might as well just say Sandman. That green stripy top is never far away. And then
not.
you actually see some electric lightning going on as well, which would hint at the rumors of Jamie Foxx's return as Electro being true as well. And then we get that really, really cool shot where they're on the highway and the pumpkin bomb comes in, Josh Brown.
Yes, it does.
Formula. Willem Dafoe has been rumored to be in this movie for ages, and yeah, that pretty much seals the deal, because then after that, we get the even better moment of Harry, Larry, Flo, and Mo, which I think are the names of the tentacles that Alfred Molina, named them in Spider-Man 2. They emerge onto the bridge. He walks out. He goes, "Hello, Peter," and then we all collectively died, and that was the end of that.
Where to begin, Ewan? It's so funny because we knew Alfred Molina was in this movie, I think at the detriment of Kevin Feige's health. He was talking about it. He was talking about being on set. He was talking about being back in this role. And even knowing that he was the one who was locked in, like you said, there were rumors that Willem Dafoe might be back, Green Goblin, Sandman, all of that stuff. Even knowing that they were going to include Doc Ock in this trailer, it still worked. I still got chills, and when he came up onto the highway and then said that line, just hearing that voice again, transported me back. It was such a seemingly inconspicuous line, I suppose. It's just "Hello, Peter." It did so much. It did so much heavy lifting. And like you said, to be preceded by those teasers for Sandman, by those teasers for the Green Goblin, by those teasers for Electro, it gave me just enough. It didn't show too much. And even though we could all infer what's going to happen or what they're building up to, it doesn't make it any less exciting, and it doesn't make the trailer any less effective. It was, like you said at the start, at least for me personally, over this past year, there's been a general malaise with superhero stuff. I found it very difficult to get into the MCU shows, not for a lack of quality, just because there's so much content, even more so than when they were doing 3 or 4 movies a year. But this has got me giddy. This has got me very excited, and they've packed so much in here that I expected and so much in here that I didn't expect, that I'm just asking questions left, right, and center, and I'm so excited to see where we go next, because they are juggling so much. But I want to see Willem Dafoe back. I want to see him, even if they have to de-age him like they've de-aged Alfred Molina, I'll be totally okay with that. Obviously, we didn't get any other Spider-Men, other actors in this, but I don't think we needed them at this moment in time, I think. Or did we? You're looking at me like I missed something potentially quite big here. Come on.
People have inferred that the way that scene is set up, where he says "Hello, Peter," is that the
Yes.
other Spider-Man could be on there as well, and that he's actually addressing Tobey Maguire's Peter. So yeah, I kind of hope that they don't de-age these characters. I mean, obviously it looks like Doc Ock has been, and it would make sense in the chronology of those movies, given that they either died or were reformed by the end of it, for them to be plucked out at specific moments in the multiversal timeline. But I just want to see old man Tobey Maguire, Peter Parker, just vibing Spider-Verse style. See what he's getting up to.
Man.
Bring back Kirsten Dunst, and that's kind of just... I want to see what they've been up to. It's been too long. Maybe Sam Raimi will give us that in Multiverse of Madness the next year, but... Yeah.
Totally. I mean, that's an entirely different kind of worms, and that's an entirely different video. But I was interested when we heard the rumors about this. Just to finish off, I suppose, whether or not they were going to change those characters, because, like we said, Doc Ock dead. Green Goblin dead in the original Sam Raimi timeline, but from what Jamie Foxx, I think, has said, and from the brief flash of lightning that we got in this trailer, which was yellow rather than the blue that version of Electro was, embodying in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I wonder which versions of these characters are going to stay how we know them and remember them, and which are going to have these multiverse tweaks, whether they're going to change costumes, whether they're going to change origins, whether they're going to be allowed and permitted to be a little bit older. That's what makes me excited, and it makes it more interesting that we didn't see those characters in the flesh, because hopefully there is a surprise on that level to be found in the final movie.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think that covers everything. It comes out December 17th, and I am very excited.
I cannot wait. Like I said, I'm so giddy for this. There's so much to break down, but I want to know, most importantly, what you guys think down in the comments below. Was this trailer everything you've been waiting for? I know we've been waiting for a long time. Did it make you as excited as us? And what do you think about some of these mysteries, like Spidey's new black suit? Let us know while you're down there. Could you please give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to Whatculture, and head over to Whatculture for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't know I've been Josh, you can follow me talking about Spider-Man on Twitter at Josh Brune with 2 O's, joined by Ewan, who you can follow on Twitter at
Ewan Ruins Things.
And we will see you soon.
Goodbye.
Thwip.